He walked the same street every morning. Long before the city opened its eyes, people who passed him later in the day only saw a man pushing a cart, sorting through what others no longer wanted. They saw faded gloves, a worn uniform, a routine that looked ordinary from far away. What they didn't see was the way he paused sometimes, studying a discarded object as if it carried a memory only he could feel. They never wondered why he looked at broken things with such careful attention. They never asked what he did when he went home and the world stopped watching. Aaron had lived this pattern for years. He rose in the early darkness, moved through empty streets, and watched the sky shift from pale blue to the familiar light of morning. The work was repetitive, yet he treated each corner of the route with a kind of responsibility that came from knowing nobody else cared about these forgotten spaces. He rarely spoke. He rarely needed to. His presence was as steady as the sun climbing over the rooftops. But when the day ended, another version of him surfaced. Inside his small apartment, behind a door that creaked when he pushed it open, the man who carried other people's waste set down his cart and reached for something the world had never seen. In the dim corner by the window, he kept scraps of canvas he had found on his route, strips of old fabric, pieces of cardboard, panels with chipped edges, anything that could hold color. He kept jars of leftover paint, each a different shade, each taken from piles that most people stepped over. With these fragments, he created images that didn't match the life he lived outside. Images filled with restrained longing, controlled strokes, and shapes that revealed how much he had carried in silence. He had loved drawing once, before responsibilities hardened into routine, before loss forced him into work, before art became a luxury he felt guilty touching. When his father died, bills arrived faster than dreams. He stopped sketching. He found a job that offered stability, even if it cost him something he never admitted aloud. Years passed. Work became identity. Identity became a shield he couldn't remove. One morning, everything shifted with something small. Under a collapsed box near the alley, he noticed a painting tossed aside. Not torn, not ruined, simply abandoned. Colors still vivid, shapes bold, the image unfinished. He froze. It looked like confidence. It looked like the kind of courage he had once envied. Instead of sending it into the truck, he set it gently beside his cart and later carried it home. That night, he placed it against the wall opposite his table. He couldn't look away. The strokes had an energy he hadn't allowed himself in years. Each time he tried to sleep, he found himself turning toward it again. A stranger had given up on this image. He wondered why. He wondered what it meant about all the people who stopped creating, all the people who hid parts of themselves, because the world never asked to see them. The next day, his route felt different. He started noticing things he had ignored before. The way rainwater made colors deepen on the pavement, the faint outlines of chalk from a drawing left by a child, the glow inside apartment windows where people were waking up. These details pulled at something inside him, as if the painting he found had unlocked a door he'd kept shut for too long. He began to paint more intensely at night, not with grand ambition, but with a need he could no longer delay. He mixed odd colors, repaired broken brushes, and stayed up until fatigue blurred the edges of his vision. In those hours, he existed without the weight of expectation. The strokes became a place where he could breathe. But the world outside remained demanding. His supervisor noticed extra objects in the cart and warned him sharply. Bills waited on the table every month. His back ached more each day. Reality reminded him that dreams did not pay for electricity or food. Some nights, he sat in front of his paints without moving, feeling the pressure of a life built from necessity rather than choice.
The shift came unexpectedly. He had finished a piece late one evening, an image filled with conflicting shades, lines that looked like hesitation turning into release. He left it near the shed behind his building to dry. He didn't think anyone would notice. The next afternoon, there was a knock at his door. A teenage girl from 2 floors down stood there holding the painting in both hands. She looked nervous, as if she had discovered something secret. When she spoke, her voice trembled. She told him the picture made her stop in place, made her feel something she couldn't explain. Then she asked the question he had feared for years. "Did you make this?" For a moment, he couldn't breathe. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to push the truth back into the shadows where it had lived for so long. Admitting it meant acknowledging the part of himself he had abandoned, but her eyes held a kind of sincerity he couldn't turn away from. He nodded once. Her reaction surprised him. She didn't admire him like a hero. She didn't flatter him. She simply looked relieved, as if she had been searching for proof that quiet people could still hold pieces of beauty inside them. She thanked him softly and left. When the door closed, Aaron sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his hands. They were rough from work, scarred from years of lifting and pulling, yet they had created something that touched a stranger, something that reached across silence. The next morning, he returned to work. He pushed his cart down the same street, under the same fading lights, but something had shifted in the way he carried himself. Inside the cart, wrapped carefully in cloth, was a new canvas he had bought with one day's wages. Not something rescued, not something discarded, something chosen. He moved through the waking city with steady steps. People around him continued with their lives, unaware of the change inside him, but for the first time in years, he wasn't just collecting what others left behind. He was carrying something forward, something that belonged to him.